Hello there everyone, I'm Christine at CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make these intertwining macrame rings, and these are the two that I've made here. So I made one in black and white with copper beads there to really show the contrast between the light and the dark, and then I also made one in blue tones, again a darker blue and a lighter blue to help show that intertwining effect there, and I also combined that with the copper beads just because I really think that goes well with blue. So this is what it looks like. So the main feature of the ring, and then the ring band goes all the way around like this, so it's nice and delicate compared, but it still suits it nicely because it's the same cord that we're using, and because it's macrame that we're making with cord, it's really nice and comfortable to wear as well, because it kind of just molds to your finger and sits like this here. So obviously we have that main feature as the main part of the ring sitting like that, and then the rest of the ring band just sits comfortably around your finger just like this. So I have previously made other pieces of jewelry using this intertwining macrame effect, so that's a bracelet, necklace and earrings as well. And then now obviously I'm going to show you how to make the ring. So if you're using the same color materials, you can really make a full complete set now to match. So what I'm going to do is actually make a whole playlist with all of those tutorials so you can easily find them, and put a link to that in the description box down below. But if you want to learn how to make the rings, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to be needing. First of all, I have my 0.5mm s-lon here, and I'm using these two different colours to really help emphasize that intertwining effect that we're going to get. And then the beads that I'm using are these 3mm rounds, and these are copper metal spacer beads. Of course, you can use whatever kind that you want to. Now, if you check out the description box below the video, you're going to find the material list along with any links as well. So let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. So we're going to need some different lengths of the different colours of cord, so I'm just going to go through that now. So I'm starting with the dark blue colour here, which is the one that I'm using to also go around the ring band, and this is a length of about 25 centimeters, and this is going to be the holding cord. So then we need two lengths here of about 80 centimeters, again of the same colour, and these are going to be working cords, so these are going to make the main feature of the ring and also part of the ring band. Then we need the final length of this colour here, and this is about 40 centimeters long. This is also going to be a working cord, but only really make part of the ring band. Then as for the other colour, which in my case here is the lighter blue, we're going to need two lengths of about 60 centimeters each, and these are also going to be working cords. So I then took my holding cord, which is the shortest one, and attached that onto my macrame board. It uses these notches here, makes it really nice and easy to work with. Then what we need to do is take the working cords and attach them onto this. So again, I want to start with the colour that matches the holding cord here, so in my case that's a dark blue. And then what I'm going to do is find the middle, so I just put both ends together. And then up here where the loop is, that's where the middle is, so I keep hold of that. And then what we need to do is attach this by bringing one end, while keeping hold of that middle, underneath that holding cord that's on the board. And then we attach it using a square knot. And what we want to make sure to do is attach these, so we're going to start making the kind of main part of the ring, so the feature, and we want to do it across roughly the middle of the holding cord. So I'm just going to attach it here using a square knot, like I said. It's a regular plain square knot, so one side goes over the holding cord, the other side goes over that, and then underneath everything in the middle. Make sure you catch that holding cord, and I like to hold on to that midpoint with my finger just for the first one here until we then make the other half. And you can see I tighten that. That's the first half. To make the other half of the knot, to make it a full square knot, I start from the other side and then do the same movements otherwise. Tighten that, and then that's a square knot, and your first working cord here is now attached. So I'm going to attach the rest of them. The next one is going to also be the dark blue, so the matching colour, and then the two after that are going to be the other colour. So now I've attached all my four working cords here. You can see I have the dark blue on the top, so it's the same colour that's going to be around the ring band, the same colour as the holding cord. And then I have my other colour, the other two working cords there, in my case the lighter blue, below them, and then I've just made sure to push them together there, and this is going to be then the starting point. We're going to work with these lengths from here and then make the feature of the ring across the middle, like I said, of that holding cord. And then what we also want to do now is attach our beads, because they're going to also go across that feature in the middle of the ring. So we just release the holding cord on the bottom here, and then attach the four beads onto that holding cord. And you can just push them down so they're out of the way for now, because we're just going to then push up one at a time that we're working with as we're going to be making our knots. So I'm then going to start pushing up the very first bead, because what we need to do is make some rows of knots. So I'm going to use the top ones here. So that's the dark blue on either side, both of them. Make some rows of knots to reach down and be able to connect in the middle there just below that bead. So first of all, I make sure that the other two working lengths, so the other colour here, the lighter blue, are going out to the side, and then I bring the two darker blue on either side, so the top two on either side, down over them. And then I'm just going to work on one side at a time. I'm just going to start on my left one here, it doesn't matter which one you start with. But then we're going to use these two lengths to make that row of knots to reach down below that bead. So you have the top one, or the outer one, as they come down here. I'm going to use that as a working cord, and I'm going to make knots around the other cord, which is in the holding cord in this case for this row. So I'm going to just grab hold of both of them, bring the working cord over the holding cord, back around and underneath, and out through the loop here on the other side. So this working cord loops around the holding cord in this way here, kind of looks like a 6. Then I'm going to tighten this all the way up, right on the side of those two square knots where we attach the cords. And then to make the other half of the knot, I need to bring the working cord underneath the holding cord, back around, over, and then through. And again, it looks like a 6, but it's now just looping around the holding cord in the opposite direction. But then we tighten this, and then that's one full knot. So basically you want to do this making one knot at a time. Start on the next one here, make the first half go over and the other half we go under, and then that's a complete knot. When we tighten it, you're going to see it starting to build there on the side. Make enough knots to reach below that bead, and then you want to move over to the other side, do the same thing in the exact same way, except we're just working mirrored now, because obviously we're on the other side, so this is the right side. So again, the top one, or the outer one there, is the working cord. So you're kind of just working with opposite hands now. But we'll go over, back around and through, and then we'll go under, back around and through, to then get that same knot on the opposite side. And then you start to build a row here as well, and again reaching both down to fit just underneath that first bead. So then for the knots to reach down below that first bead there, I've ended up making 6 knots in total on either side, because then what you're going to find is that they reach down perfectly. If I just take the holding cord on either side, bring them across here, and then kind of pull the knots tight, you can see they fit just perfectly around the other knots and also the bead, and it's kind of going to cage it all in nicely. So then what we need to do is actually connect them in the middle. So I'm going to use these two holding cords, the one from either side, and then just do a square knot right here in the middle with them, around the holding cord in the middle. Make sure that bead is staying there, so that when we tighten the knot, it tightens below the bead, and then obviously helps cage it in place and fasten it all. Make the other half of the square knot, because the other half of the knot is really what holds it in place and makes it nice and tight. Before tightening the other half, I like to just retighten the first half, because it can kind of open up a little bit. Then I push against it so it stays in place, and then I pull the other half tight there. Now it's going to completely hold in place just like that. And just put these cords here straight out to the side. And what I then just like to do as well is kind of grab onto the holding cord in the middle. If I can catch it here. And then just gently push against, from the bottom there, the knots. Push up against the other knots and the beads, just to help tighten it up so we don't have any loose cord anywhere. And retighten up that holding cord. So now what we need to do is move to the other colour and then basically do the same thing, but what we're going to have now is, if I push up the next bead here, the distance that these rows that we're going to have to cover around the sides is larger than the first ones, because first time we only had to cover the distance with that one bead. Now we're going to have to cover 2 beads. So in order to account for that, I'm going to bring the cords, now these are the new top ones, the light blue in my case, down over the top of the other ones, so just keep these out of the way. And again, start on one side at a time, and make sure that they're separated so you have one that's more towards the top and one that's more towards the bottom. You can just double check if you need to. And then we need to start out the exact same way. So I take the outer one or the top one there, start making my first knot, so go over first and then tighten all the way up to sit next to those square knots with these colours here, and then we'll go under, back around and through, and tighten to do the other half, and that's now one full knot. And then you can see that's the exact same way as we started with the dark blue. The knots in the beginning here are now just forming underneath the other rows that we've already made. But then that's how you start off on this side, and of course, just like with the dark blue on the other side, you just go over, do the same thing, but because it's on the other side, it's going to be mirrored. Just make sure you have a top one and a bottom one. So we're just using opposite hands here, or the hands kind of switch jobs, you could say. And then you start a row on this side. And it's the same principle. You need to make enough knots here so these rows here reach below that new bead right there in the middle. So for these rows here, I've ended up making 8 knots on either side to reach down, and then it's the same principle. Use the 2 holding cords, one from either side, to make a square knot there in the middle, making sure that bead is pushed all the way up so the square knot gets tightened right underneath it. And then the other half of it to make it tight and stay in place. And then remember, just tighten that first half, because otherwise it opens up a little bit. Tighten that, push it in so it stays in place, and then we can tighten the other half. And there we go. And same principle again as well. Make sure to push that up, just so we have no loose cords there in between the beads and the knots. So there we go. You can see now it reaches out a little bit further. So now what we need to do is basically just keep doing this, because we now reach the kind of main center part of it, because then this would be pushing up the next bead and then bringing down the new top cords, which in this case again now are dark blue. Bring them down over the other ones that are going out to the sides and just push them out of the way. And then just start your rows again, and now we need to make the same amount of knots as we just did previously, because you can see that it covers the same distance. So keep doing that until you've then added in all the beads. In this case here, I'm going to be using the 4. So now adding in all 4 beads here, then we just have one more step to do, because we need to make sure that we end up with these dark blue, in my case, cords as the bottom ones, because that's the color that I'm going to use for the ring band. So the same color that we started out with basically. So just like this, bring them down over the top of the other ones, and then here, let's get this one out of the way, because obviously again we now have a shorter distance to reach. That's going to then actually be the same as the very first one that we made. So we're going to need the same amount of knots there in this case here. Just make sure that they're separated out. So I'm starting with the right one, like that here. I need to make 6 knots again, starting in the exact same way. So go over, make sure the others here don't get tangled up. There's only short ends left, so they're a little bit unruly. And then we'll go under. Make 6 knots on this side, go to the other side, use them 2, obviously then working mirrored, also make 6 on there. So your rows then reaches underneath that previous square knot that we made in the middle with the lighter blue cord. So now I made my 6 knots on either side there with the dark blue, and what I also just want to mention is before we attach those dark blue cords in the middle, with the previous light blue ones here, where we attach them in the middle using that square knot, and throughout so we just use one square knot between each of the beads. Because this is the last ones and we've added in all the beads, we actually want to use the other cords as well. So I've already made that first square knot, then I take what was the working cords for those rows there, and also make a square knot with them. So just bring them over the other ones and then tighten them. And the reason for this as well is because if you remember, look back in the beginning, just tighten the other half as well, so that's a square knot. Back at the beginning there, when we attach the cords, the working cords, to the holding cord in the middle, you can actually see that it's actually 2 square knots. So just to also get this end to look the same, that's why we use the other cords as well. So we now have 2 square knots underneath each other. And the same goes for these next rows that I've just made. So the dark blue ones here, bring them over the light blue ones. Just bring the other ones here out to the side and out of the way. And then, because I've already made the rows long enough so they fit, First of all, I'm going to use the holding cord from either side, make a square knot there, around that middle holding cord, and then again just make sure that the first half of the knot is nicely tightened, and then do the other half, and then again, just like I just showed you with the light blue, we take the other ones, which in this case are the ones that have been with the working cords in the previous rows, and you can see they're also the shorter ones, same as the light blue, and also make a square knot with them right underneath the previous one, because then we'll get this end to look more or less the same as the beginning there. We get the spacing even as well. So there we go. We've now added in all the beads, and we have this kind of intertwining effect, especially with the two different colors that are going on right here in the middle, which is the main feature of the ring. So now we got to move straight on and start making the ring band here, because I'm already on this end and I've got my dark blue cords, which are going to be the cords that I use for the ring band, on this end here ready to go. What I'm going to do is just keep doing it from here to begin with. So as you can see, the bottom ones here that we just used, those are the shorter ones. They're not going to be long enough. So what I need to do is, the next ones up, so the first ones I made a square knot with, I need to bring them down and use them to make the ring band with. So I'm just going to bring them over the other two dark blue, the shorter ones going out to the side, and then make a square knot again with these two. You can see they're longer ones, just right underneath the previous one, because then they've been brought down to the bottom ones. And now what we can do is just literally continue using these two cords here to make a row of knots, and this is going to then form part of the ring band. So just use these two same longer, in my case dark blue cords, and they're going to gradually move more and more away from the piece and building these knots right after each other. You can start to see it there. So make what's going to be one side of the ring band, and obviously it all depends on the size that you need, because then what we're going to do is flip the piece around, and then also obviously we need the ring band on the other side of this main piece, and then also we then need to connect it all in the middle. So once I got the length on this side here, then all I'm going to do is take my board, flip it around to the other side, and I'm just going to kind of pull it up a little bit so it sits better. I have a little bit more space to work with, and you can just push the other cords, all of them here, out of the way towards the top, because then what we need to do is grab the very last remaining cord that we cut ready, but we haven't used yet. And again, this is the dark blue, because that's the same color as the ring band so far and the outer ones. So again, to make sure we find the middle, I need to put both ends together, and then I have the middle here, which I can keep hold of, because I then want to attach this in the exact same way as I did with all the original working cords. I'm just going to do it on this opposite side. Just attach it again using a square knot. Because obviously otherwise we haven't got any cords on this side of the main feature here to actually use to make the ring band. So I'm attaching that all the way up to the knot that's already there as close as it'll go. Make the other half. Again, just make sure I push it up just so I know there's none of that holding cord showing in between the knots. And then all you do is use these lengths here to then make the same length of the ring band as we just did on the other side there. And make sure that when we made both lengths, the one on either side here, that it's still not quite long enough to reach around your finger, because we still need to have just a bit of length left to actually then be able to connect the two sides together so we get a continuous ring band. So once I made my knots here, you can see we then have a length of knots on either side of the main piece right here in the middle, so all that intertwining effect. So what I can do now is actually take this off my board, because all we got to do is connect it and get rid of the cords as well. So now I removed it from my board here, and then what I want to do before I connect these two ends together is actually get rid of some of the cords while it's open, because it's a little bit easier. Now all the cords on the end, so these three, the holding cord in the middle and the two working cords on the end, and the same on the other end, leave them there because we still need to use them. but I'm going to get rid of all the rest of them here. So the lighter blue ones in my case, and then 2 of the dark blue ones there, basically the ones that are at the end on this middle section. So the way I'm going to get rid of them is, because I'm using a synthetic cord, I can singe the ends down by using a lighter. You can also just put glue around the ends where they're coming out, then let it dry and cut off the excess. But to singe them down, I'm just going to take my scissors, go in and cut off the excess, but I'm leaving just a millimeter or 2 from where the cords are coming out from. So I'm not cutting them right down. Something like that. Just going to do the other side as well. You can just do a couple of cords at a time if you want. And that one too. And then with that short little tail that's left, you can see them sticking out. I'm going to take my lighter. Now be careful because it's a naked flame and it does get hot. But then I'm going to use that to kind of just melt these ends down. So singe them in, and then I like to push against it with my finger. Can also just use the lighter itself to push against it. But the reason that I like to use my fingers, 1, it doesn't get that hot because you're just on it for a couple of seconds, but 2, you obviously have to wear this against the skin on your finger, so you do have to make sure that it's comfortable. And I feel using your finger to push it in just quickly there, it really makes it mold nicely and makes it flat as well. So I'll get rid of these cords as well, so we're only left with the ones on the end that we can then connect them with. So now I got rid of those cords there. Then I just want to show you a little regarding the sizing. So all the distance I've made, so the row of knots there on either side, just to show you that when you make them, we still need that space left for when I bring it all the way around my finger here, or obviously if you're using a ring mandrel to measure it, that I still have space there, because we still need to make some more knots to obviously be able to connect this, but otherwise then it looks like that on. So I have my space there ready. So now what we need to do is get these 2 ends together nice and securely, and then obviously also get rid of the rest of the excess cords. So first of all, make sure that the front of the piece here is facing outwards. So obviously when we finished off the other cords is facing inwards towards your finger. Then I'm going to take the holding cord from either end and then bring them together. So kind of basically crossing over each other there, right next to each other, to the opposite sides. Now what I'm going to make sure to do is that this cord here, I'm just going to start on one side at a time, because we then need to continue making knots. I'm going to make sure that this holding cord from the opposite end down here is coming towards this end that I'll be working on, but underneath the working cords. Then the working cords on this end are these 2. What I'm going to do is, it can be a little bit fiddly this, because obviously I'm just holding it in my hands and it's all kind of loose for now. Make sure that that holding cord stays underneath the working cord. I then need to use these 2 working cords to make a square knot around both of these 2 holding cords now, and try and make sure that these 2 holding cords are staying flat next to each other. So I'll bring one side over, the other side over that, underneath everything in the middle, so both of those holding cords. So basically it's just coming through the ring band and then up through the loop there on the other side, and then you can gently let go as you're pulling these 2 working cords tighter. You can start to see that that's the first half of our square knot, and then you have this holding cord that's coming from the opposite end. It's coming through the knot but kind of going in towards the back or the middle inside of the ring band, and then tighten that nicely. And then already now it's going to be easier to work with because it's not moving around as much. Make the other half and go through the ring band to go underneath there, and then tighten this, and then that's the other half of that square knot. So there you go. What you want to do now is make a few square knots on this end. How many really depends obviously on the size, but then also how much space that you had left before. So before I get too much further, what I'm going to do is flip it to the other side, because this holding cord that's coming from this end here is still loose, as you can see, but we want to fasten that in the exact same way but on this end, so make sure it's laying flat next to the other one. So we're bringing it up and the 2 next to each other there, and again make sure it goes underneath the working cords on this end, and just hold these 2 holding cords together, bring the working cords down, and then make a square knot here as well in the exact same way. Again, this end again can be a little bit fiddly because we have the other loose holding cord, but as soon as that's fastened, it becomes a lot easier to work with. Tighten that, and again make sure to make the other half. And don't worry about the sizing just yet, because right now I'm just kind of securing it in place. Just like that. So now you can see we have both holding cords there, the one from either end, basically being fastened and going towards the opposite end, and also crossing flat next to each other right there in the middle. So now we've ended up having two holding cords, and now, like I said, we need to continue making square knots to basically fill in that space that we left. So you just do one side at a time, and I recommend trying to make an even amount of knots on both sides, because then what we need to end up with is for the two ends of the knots here that we're working with to meet up in the middle, so that we can then pull on the two holding cords and bring them together, because obviously right now this is quite big to then, we're just working with it anyway, but we can pull them tight so the two ends then meet in the middle, and then it becomes one complete ring band. So now that I made the same amount of knots on both sides, you can see where the holding cords are coming through the knots there on the inside. I have some distance until the bottom of the row of knots on this side here, and the same on the other side as well. So now what we need to do is bring these two ends together if you feel that you have the right size. So in this case I'm just going to use a pair of flat nose pliers to help grip it better. So I'm just going to take on one side at a time, grab onto the holding cord that's coming through the knots there towards the inside of the ring band, and then I'm grabbing onto the ends there of the knots, and then you just want to gently pull. You can see it brings them together. It's also because it's only a short length, you can't really get much of a grip on it. I can't here anyway. On the other side, flip it around, do the same thing, grab hold on the knots and then pull at this holding cord. You can start to see that it's then really bringing these two ends together. And just make sure that they're pulled all the way so they're sitting really nice and tight there in the middle, so we don't have loose holding cords showing, but the ends of the knots there, or the rows, the knots right at the end of the rows, they're sitting literally right next to each other. So if you just gotta go in and double check, make sure it's pulled all the way. And obviously you can also try this on either your finger or a ring mandrel to see the size is right, because if it's not quite right, if you find out actually it's a bit too small, then you can always undo this, like pull it open again and then just make a couple more knots, or if you need to undo some of the knots, then you can also do that. But obviously it's easy if you have the size right. And then when you've done this, all that's left to do now is get rid of all the rest of the cords. So it's all the ones we've literally just been using. So obviously the actual holding cords that are coming in towards the middle of the ring band, and then these working cords as well, and I just get rid of them in the exact same way as I did with the ones at the back of this main piece as well. So I just cut down, I have a short little length, and then singe down the ends with a lighter. So again, if you're using glue, you can do that instead, it's completely up to you, but finish them off and then you have your finished ring. Now what I also just want to show you is on the inside of the ring band here, I have those ends that I've also cut down. Now it can be a little bit hard to get in there with the lighter if you're using a lighter to singe them down. So in this case here, I have this lighter with this long neck, so that does really help. What I then do is I kind of hold my ring on the outside, then I put the lighter through first, then I turn it on, because obviously what we want to do is avoid singeing or melting down any of the other cord. Then just turn it on and then I slowly bring it up to then basically melt it from the inside here, and then obviously turn it off as I remove it and then just push it down. So just a little tip to how you can try and make sure that you melt that inside without affecting any of the rest of it, and obviously also not hurting your fingers. So there you go, it's now finished off and you have your finished ring. So these are the two rings that I've made here. So a black and a white one with the copper beads, and then two different tones of blue, again with copper beads as well. So we have the darker and the lighter color in both of them to really help emphasize that intertwining effect. And then the ring bands going all the way around there. So they're nice and delicate but still sturdy enough to be a full ring band and also comfortable to wear. So that's what they look like. So make sure that if you want to make the whole set so you can make matching intertwining macrame effects, both bracelet, necklace and earrings, and now also this ring, to check out the description box below where there's going to be a link to the playlist with all those tutorials. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. Do feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you what you think of these, and also if you have anything else that you want to share with me. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.